What's on the front
page of the Daily Nation? The big story there, never learned from Shakahola. 57 people who turned the church's premises into their home, rescued by police. Barely 2 years after the Shakahola massacre and over 800 kilometers from the forested mass graves, another eerily chilling saga is unfolding in Migori. And like in Kilifi, the discovery of 2 deaths at Malkio St. Joseph Mission of Messiah in Africa Church has exposed yet another cult in the country and caught the attention of the authorities. Very, very troubling story on page 10. It takes us a little bit into the detail of this discovery. It says here that Shakahola was a name known only to a few before March 2023, but in the incident in March would expose the horror where 2 boys had starved to death after their parents locked them in a room to quote-unquote fast. And then the dark secrets of Shakahola began to unravel, bodies turned up in their hundreds, and later the activities of a cult reportedly under Mr. Paul Mackenzie emerged. Now the sign at Malkio St. Joseph Mission of Messiah in Africa Church bears the writing, "Welcome to New Jerusalem, Kimpontate, Quinali." Wow, hallelujah. All right. Should have really internalized that before opening the paper. It's Kimpontate, Quinanile, Monatirio, hallelujah.
What on earth is that?
I'm sure there is a direct translation from that.
This is not Luo, is it? It's not.
It doesn't sound like. It doesn't sound like this. It sounds like an emergence
the
of
New Jerusalem.
New Jerusalem.
Cannot be even Hebrew, is it?
Yeah, Latin, Hebrew.
Quinaleli, Monatirio.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. Because that's the New Jerusalem.
Yeah.
Higher.
We can find out more. It goes on to say, now the deaths of 2 people believed to be members of the church are subject to investigation. Police say the suspicious deaths prompted a raid on the church on Monday night that led to the rescue of 57 people who had turned the place into their home. It goes on to say that they went on to deploy officers to the church to secure it. And at the time of the raid, there were more than 100 people who had taken refuge in the fortified compound, with every individual assigned a particular role. So it's kind of just beginning to unravel where the suspicions began and why they escalated. It says that a driver at Nyanza Provincial Hospital in Kisumu said he would travel to his home in Kamuyu every weekend to spend Sundays at the church. His family of 5 children would also go there and take part in weekend prayers. Then he says, I just took the decision to leave the church after what I believed was radicalization of worshippers, and added that his 19-year-old daughter moved to Malkio St. Joseph Mission of Messiah after dropping out of school in 2004, and the young woman later died. And he believes his daughter's body is buried in the church compound. She even convinced my 2 other daughters to join. One was in Form 4 and struggled to complete her studies. And 6 years later, his wife abandoned her matrimonial home and moved to the church. So really beginning to show those characteristics, I think, is why they're saying it's suspicious. You know what I think the positive note here is that it's not taken them too long to say, we want to act on our suspicions. We could be wrong, but we want to act on our suspicions and say, there's a large number of people in this home. It seems like there's this motive of isolating from family. People are dying suspiciously. We want to move and lean into our suspicions and unpack what's happening. That, for me, is the good news that has come out of this story, as opposed to...
You're seeing some positive there?
In the sense of the positive is the authorities being alert enough to say, we want to prod. For me, that's a positive, because you would rather, in fact, you'd rather come back and be castigated for
not taking action.
No, for prodding into something that maybe, quote unquote, was innocent. But I'd rather that you leaned into your suspicion to say something doesn't add up here. Because then this could have maybe grown to 1,000. We don't know how this is going to continue to unravel. But always act on that suspicion, on that hunch.
True. I'm in my
Where are you
Eric
with that?
zone, and I'm thinking, how many people were living in this compound? Is it 57?
It is, yeah.
Again, authorities around would know a place where 57 people are living together, as in a commune of whatever kind. I don't want to say that this is happening now because of XYZ, but it's good that they are prodding the murder. But I do wonder how people were living in this commune sort of situation for a while without the authorities, prodding and asking questions and saying, what's happening here? Are you a community? Are you a family? Are you a church? What exactly is going on? So I do have a lot of questions. The fact that also all the female members, all the women at the church identify themselves as Alleluia and are not at ease to share information about what usually goes on when they are in the compound. While being rescued, 57 individuals were taken to the hospital for attention, but they flatly refused to be examined by medical officers. Health workers advised that the group be removed from the hospital as they were a bother to other patients. So again, all the markers of cultism and like problematic things that we've seen before, Shakahola being the biggest, worst example that we could have possibly seen. But yes, 57 people living together is not going to be a surprise to law enforcement in that area, to Migori as a whole in general. People knew.
Janet, I want to convince you to change your mind.
Okay. Convince me.
2003 is when this first case of Shakahola starts, when these two boys are found and the whole thing blows out of the water.
2023,
2023, okay? But 2004 is when a 19-year-old girl dropped out of school and was convinced to join Malchio St. Joseph Mission of Messiah in Africa Church. 2004. That is 10 years prior. This church has been in operation for all these years. People have been, coming, and like this particular gentleman who's saying he used to work and every weekend he'd come home. He was a driver at the Nyanza Provincial Hospital, now Jaramogi. There are other members of the community who are joining this church. People would come and stay here and live here for long. The activities of people dropping out of school, or those are all telltale signs in a community. So we could even say that the entire community here has been brainwashed at all. But there's a headman, there's a chief, there's a sub-chief, there's a chief, and the administration structures going up. So when now we see that the deputy county commissioner is talking about his office being informed of ailing people at the church on Monday and then sending police officers to storm the church, this must not be the first time that they're aware. The reports of ailing people in this particular compound are coming out. And I think it points to a breakdown in the structure of that administration structure, the Ngao structure going up. The chief should have reported something. And the chief then should also have a brief that if, especially after Shakahola, in this region, and we know this is a particular region where you are likely to find this kind of cults, because these are churches that, it's not just the only church in this region that have these names and this kind of cultic activities. Chiefs in this area should have been told, okay guys, let's start being very, very active in watching out what's happening.
Right.
I think there's a breakdown in the national government administration system.
That's true. I think there is a breakdown. I think for me that it's coming to light. You're right. I think you've both kind of alluded to the fact that, well, people must have known about the activities. And maybe what needs to start happening is when, you know, the way radicalization and cultism happens is it sneaks up on you and it sneaks up on communities. So this is obviously by no means to excuse anything, but was there a point where they thought this must be an isolated incident? And then as several incidents continue to happen, maybe people think it's not as alarming because, again, it's not a large number of people. And so maybe the question that we need to be asking, or what we need to be pushing for, is any sense of something that seems off, be alerted and then take action, probe, as opposed to saying, okay, now it's 57, maybe we need to go in. Or in the case of, Shakahola, now it's a few hundred, maybe now we need to take action. But it's understanding how the radicalization happens. It sneaks up on you. Sometimes even these authorities are part of this cultism. So now you're completely, you're compromised, actually. That's another harmful thing. You're compromised and you believe, no, but this is like a cleansing, because that's how. So it's prodding all the different layers of when does it move from being something that's community to cult? When does it move from being something that's, open to something that becomes isolated? And then when do you begin to raise your suspicions? A lot of the time, children or vulnerable members in the church, maybe if the women are regarded less than, some of them have gut feelings, but then you're threatened. You're starting to be told, if you leave here, you can't come back, or if you leave, your kids stay here, and you can't come back.